Harry is whipped. Do you know the expression whipped?
I'm familiar with the phrase.
I won't use the full expression. But Harry is whipped like no person I think I've ever seen. I'm not a fan of Meghan.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. And I wasn't right from the beginning.
Same
I think
to
poor
you.
Harry is being led around by his nose, okay?
You think he's going to end?
I do. I've been a very good predictor, as you know. I predicted almost everything. It'll end, and it'll end bad.
He's became a very popular prince, and now he's absolute rubbish.
Harry is just a lost soul. I mean, maybe this will be his up and coming story later about struggle and hardship once he goes through it with Meghan, because that is what is awaiting him. Seriously, it's going to get really bad for him once that starts to unravel.
Gotten to know a lot of the family members. They're great people. They're really great people. And in that sense, I think that the UK is very lucky. You could have people that weren't great people. I don't know if I'd say that, but you could have people that weren't. But
we're very lucky to have a royal family.
Well, Harry, you're such a bad actor. You're not funny at all.
Frankly, it's a slap in the face to President Trump as well, this little appearance.
This man is unraveling before our own eyes. Charles really needs to strip him of the title because they can't be trusted.
Well, he was kind of a jerk.
Harry just continues to dig the hole deeper.
I think it's Harry's idiotic antics. His nastiness comes through.
Absolutely. It makes me feel sick, actually. I'm sorry. Oh.
You're an actual prince. Why would you want to be in one of those movies?
Well, you Americans are obsessed with Christmas movies, and you're clearly obsessed with royalty, so why not?
Hold on. Look, I wouldn't say we're obsessed with royalty.
Really? I heard you elected a king.
They're engaging in what Stephen Colbert is known for, which is extremely unfunny jokes that kill your brand.
His demeanor was that of a defeated man.
And I wonder if Harry's going to go back on his hands and knees back into the beautiful city of London and say, please.
I feel like 2025 has been such an embarrassment of a year for Harry and Meghan.
He's miserable, he's not happy, and he's just trying to get by and make it look good.
His awkward, spoke-fingered hand gestures and bad acting is excruciating. It is.
Suggests that he is in any way living a life of service now is delusional, is it not?
The morbid curiosity is expiring with these two. To me, this felt like lashing out. Saying this moment underscores that there is no path back for Harry.
It was supposed to be harmless, a quick, charming TV stop, the kind that fades by morning and barely makes the gossip pages. The studio lights were warm, the host easygoing, the crowd trained to laugh on cue. But Harry just couldn't resist. He tried to look relaxed, tried to play along. But there was that flicker in his eyes, the one that says he's forcing it. Everyone sensed it before the punchline even came. He leaned forward, that little smirk forming, thinking this was his moment to sound clever. But it wasn't clever, it wasn't bold, it wasn't even natural. And the laugh that followed, it was that hollow kind that exists only under stage lights, thin, polite, like people trying to help him save face rather than actually finding him funny.
They capitalise on the Duke and Duchess title. Harry is only paid a fee to talk at these events because it's billed as Prince Harry.
Inside that studio, it must have felt safe. But outside, once the camera stopped rolling, the air changed. The silence that followed his joke about Donald Trump was deafening. It wasn't outrage, it was awkwardness. That creeping discomfort when you realize someone has just stepped over a line they didn't understand. Because Harry wasn't just anyone cracking a joke. He was the son of a king.
He was kind of a jerk.
That kind of laugh, the one that only lives inside studios, it doesn't travel well. It doesn't survive outside the room.
Is the cringe-worthy, extremely unfunny bit that actually got him booed by the Colbert audience. How bad has it got to be?
On screen, everything looked fine, but the second it hit the real world, it felt wrong. Because the problem was never the joke itself, it was who was telling it. Harry wasn't there as a comedian. He wasn't a satirist or a regular on late-night TV. He was a prince, one still carrying a title, a history, a weight that doesn't just vanish because he says he's moved on. That's why people flinched. The idea of a British royal mocking an American president, it didn't come across as cheeky. It came across as arrogant. Trump didn't react right away, no furious tweets, no public jab, just silence. And somehow, that silence stung more than any comeback could have. Because when Trump doesn't engage, the story doesn't explode, it withers. It collapses under its own embarrassment. Harry thought he'd nailed it. The audience laughed. He probably left the set feeling proud. But the internet wasn't kind. The moment replayed again and again, and the more people watched, the worse it looked. That late laugh, the fake confidence, the smug tone, everything about it screamed out of touch. Viewers didn't see a confident man owning his moment. They saw someone trying too hard to belong to a world he clearly didn't understand. What should have been lighthearted suddenly looked revealing, not confident, not witty, just desperate. And then Trump finally broke the silence, not with fury, but with pity. "I wish Harry luck," he said, "because he's going to need it." That single line hit harder than any insult. It was calm, cutting, final. Because this wasn't just about one awkward joke. It was a crack in the image Harry had spent years building, and that crack was spreading. No one was outraged, no hashtags, no mass canceling. Just that quiet collective cringe. The kind that signals people are no longer angry at you, they're embarrassed for you, and that's worse. Much worse. From there, the reaction spiraled not into chaos, but into realization. Everyone saw it at once. Harry was out of his depth. The audience wasn't being cruel, they were being honest. He'd borrowed a tone that didn't belong to him, and when that happens, people don't argue, they reject you. The internet lit up with comments calling him a rent-a-prince, out of touch, desperate, and behind those words was something even harsher: disappointment. Because once upon a time, Harry had power, presence, purpose. But now, he looked like someone trying to prove relevance instead of actually having it. And Trump, who understands timing better than anyone, didn't need to say more. He waited. He let the awkwardness breathe. And with every replay of that clip, Harry's credibility shrank a little more. What began as a harmless late-night appearance turned into a slow, public unraveling. Harry wasn't just losing laughs, he was losing control of his own narrative. It's not that people suddenly hated him, it's that they stopped believing him. Every new project, every new cause, every speech, they all started to sound the same. Big promises, soft endings. Each one promoted like a new chapter, yet none leaving a lasting mark. He wasn't building anymore. He was bouncing from one spotlight to the next, hoping something would stick. And that's when the joke stopped being funny, because it wasn't about humor anymore. It was about pressure. He'd left the royal world to build something of his own, but all he'd built was noise. The media deals, the podcasts, the documentaries, they started big, made headlines, then faded into silence. Meanwhile, the expenses stayed royal. The image stayed expensive. The staff stayed large. So when the deal slowed, the strategy changed. Less substance, more appearances. Paid speeches, talk show cameos, conference panels, anything to stay visible. Even his guest spot at a Canadian real estate event drew laughter, not the good kind, but the pitying kind. A pay-to-play prince, one headline called him. The late-night joke wasn't a fluke, it was a symptom. Because when someone's truly secure, they don't reach like that. They don't gamble with self-mockery. They don't cling to microphones hoping for relevance. This wasn't confidence, it was survival. Trump saw that instantly. That's why he didn't engage, because silence is the most brutal form of dismissal. When someone like Harry thrives on attention, silence is fatal. Harry needed a reaction to stay in the game. He needed a clash, a controversy, a headline. Instead, Trump's silence left him hanging in the void. And when the silence hit, the laughter stopped. What people saw next wasn't rebellion, it was desperation. He looked like a man chasing attention he no longer knew how to earn. Each new appearance felt less like purpose and more like panic, like someone terrified of being forgotten. That's the cruel irony of fame. When you start performing just to stay visible, your visibility starts working against you. Even Meghan's name couldn't save it. Her once polished image was now entangled in every awkward headline. The glamorous power couple brand had started to look like a partnership built on overexposure. Observers began whispering that the novelty had worn off, that America had moved on, that the fairy tale had expired. And suddenly, Harry's every move was read differently. His speeches sounded hollow, his interviews defensive, his jokes strained. He wasn't being seen as relatable anymore. He was being studied. Every word was analyzed for cracks, every smile, every sentence, every stumble. The more he talked, the more people saw through it. And that's what made the late-night disaster so symbolic. It wasn't about politics or comedy. It was about exposure. About how thin the line had become between relevance and ridicule. Even insiders whispered that Harry was burning through his credibility, that every public move felt less strategic, more frantic. Because the thing about attention is once you need it, people can tell. When that happens, even small missteps echo louder. The confidence turns brittle, the charm turns forced. And Harry, once the rebel prince, had become something far sadder, the man who couldn't stop talking. He didn't slow down after the backlash. He sped up. More appearances, more statements, more noise. But the more he spoke, the smaller he seemed. The audience felt it too, that tension between wanting to care and not being able to anymore. Curiosity turned to fatigue. Sympathy turned to indifference. And indifference in celebrity terms is the death knell. Because you can survive scandal, but you can't survive being ignored. Even former supporters admitted it quietly. We're just over it. Every joke, every speech, every move now looked like another attempt to stay afloat. And that's what made Trump's silence so devastating. It made Harry look invisible. It stripped him of power without lifting a finger. When a man who once lived in palaces ends up begging for laughs on late-night TV, that's not rebellion anymore. That's erosion. Because credibility doesn't vanish overnight. It dissolves through contradictions, through empty promises, through moments that feel unnecessary instead of authentic. This wasn't a scandal. It was confirmation. Proof that the fall had already happened. By the end, no one was angry. No one was even talking about Trump anymore. The question had changed. It wasn't what did he say? It was why did he need to say it? And that's the kind of question you can't joke your way out of. The clip kept circulating, but not as entertainment. It became a reference point, a cautionary tale. When respect fades, it doesn't go with a bang. It slips away quietly, one awkward laugh at a time. And that's how it ends, not with outrage, but with apathy. A man who once represented legacy, honor, and rebellion reduced to a punchline on a talk show. A prince without a kingdom, a rebel without a cause, a man still searching for meaning under lights that don't flatter him anymore. If you stayed till the end, you already know this wasn't about one bad joke. It was about watching the illusion fall apart in real time. And the worst part? He doesn't even realize it yet. And yet, the story doesn't stop there, because the fallout from that single night didn't just vanish when the camera stopped rolling. It followed Harry everywhere he went, like a shadow that refused to fade. Behind the scenes, insiders whispered that the damage control was frantic. PR teams worked overtime, phone calls were made, statements were drafted, and yet nothing really fixed it. The clip had already gone viral, dissected from every angle, replayed in slow motion, turned into memes. It wasn't the kind of scandal that roars, it was the kind that lingers, the kind that eats away at credibility quietly. Even people who once defended him began to look uneasy. He's lost touch, one commentator sighed. It's like he doesn't understand how he looks anymore. And that was the cruelest part Harry didn't seem to notice. He kept smiling for cameras, kept joking in interviews, like he was immune to embarrassment. But audiences had already decided. What made it worse was how natural his desperation began to look. Every time he appeared on screen afterward, people couldn't unsee it. The forced laughter, the restless energy, the look of someone trying to convince not the world, but himself. And Meghan? Her silence spoke volumes. She didn't rush to defend him. She didn't release statements or clever comments. She simply disappeared for a while, letting the narrative swallow him whole. Some say it was strategic. Others say it was self-preservation. But whatever it was, it made the contrast sharper, the image of a man spiraling alone in a spotlight he no longer controlled. The joke became a symbol. Every headline, every opinion piece, every podcast segment circled back to it. It wasn't about that one night anymore. It was about what it represented. A prince without a purpose. A voice without direction. And maybe that's why this story hurts to watch. Because beneath all the noise, all the gossip, all the humiliation, there's something tragically human about it. A man who thought he could reinvent himself, only to realize too late that you can't rewrite your story when the world has already stopped reading. That's how relevance fades, not in silence, but in laughter that doesn't reach the eyes.